Hi guys, that's the halfway point of Mamemeister's High Score Kerfuffle Season 7, and last week we were playing Snow Bros 2, a selection from Robert that was released by Turplan in 1994. I read this off last week, not thinking it was going to be a good game, but I was very wrong in that judgment. I really enjoyed my time with it. There are 4 characters, but I quickly settled on the Snowman, as the snowballs seem most capable of taking out all of the enemies in one go, which is key to getting decent bonuses. Beyond getting bonuses, it's a case of progressing through the levels, tackling the bosses at the end of stages 1, 2 and 4. Stage 3 is a vertically scrolling stage, similar to Rainbow Islands, and I didn't get much beyond the stage 4 boss, but Jeff reported it's not that difficult beyond that point, and was the only person to 1cc the game. Something else I feel I should comment on, and the super weird profile pics of the characters in the Western releases. The region setting of the game is a dib switch, and generally I've been using the default Japanese region, but if you set it to either European or US regions, the character pictures go from some cutesy cartoon characters to some weird mutant babies. Not sure why they did this, but it's pretty unusual. Regarding home releases, this never saw a version outside of the arcade, possibly due to Turplan's collapse. I think it would have made a decent home game, but maybe people would have wanted something a bit more advanced than this in 1994 or 1995. Could have been a good swan song for the 16-bit machines though. So with another week done, let's take a look at the scores. So we've had 18 people playing this week, with a few apologies sent to me with people being unavailable. In 10th, we have a return from Ian, who said he's a fan of the original game. He scored 500,000. Beyond that, there's a bit of a jump to over 1 million, with Milthy and Blue Yak close on points, around 1.2 million. 4th to 7th are then close too, around 1.4 to 1.5 million, with Mark taking 4th place. Our top 3 are then made of Graham in 3rd with 1.7 million, myself in 2nd with 1.8 million, and then this week's winner, and the only person to 1cc the game, which gives a big bonus, is Big Juffer. We've had 3 shmups this season, and then Juff takes his first win on a platform game. This was a great effort, and he set himself apart from everyone else this week, so well done to Juff. Here is the score distribution. Once again we see a bimodal distribution. This is likely due to the difficulty of the second boss, the train character with the big nose. Get beyond that, and then there is the vertical level, which I have usually got a 6 or 700,000 bonus on. So we have a group of folks at around 400,000, a gap, then another group around the 1.5 million mark, corresponding to that tricky level 4. And then beyond that, we can see Jaffa all on his own, really separating himself from the pack, so great job there. And now the difficulty curve. Again we can see this is quite steppy, rather than a curve. We've got our bottom 3 around 200,000, a jump to around 400,000, then a big jump in the middle to around 1.5 million, before a final jump to Juff at the top. With games like this that have somewhat straightforward levels, followed by tricky bosses with big bonuses, this sort of plot seems to be somewhat typical, with many people getting stuck at similar points. And finally the progress over the week. With certain sections being more difficult than others, we can see the various points that people improve significantly, and their score really jumps up. Juff set the first decent score, before I moved things on. Ian, and then my Retro Tech were briefly leading, before Juffa jumped the score up again, and was leading for several days. There was then a flurry of activity at the weekend, with Graham, Bob and Mark doing well. And then finally, it was Juff who dropped his 3 million score, which no one was then able to match. Now that we're halfway through the season, let's take a look at how the league table is doing. There's been surprisingly little movement compared to previous weeks. Ian gets some points on the board and is up 4 places. Bob has got ahead of Blue Yak with that good performance this week, and then beyond that we have some changes in our podium positions. Myself and Juff have scored some big points this week, and that's got both of us ahead of Pearl. Juff's win makes that 5 different winners in the 5 games that we've had, which is a nice bit of diversity. At the top though remains last season's winner Graham. He continues to do well, although he's only 21 points ahead of Juff now. Let's see if the next game can close that gap. Now we're on to the second half of the decade. I've had 17 games sent to me from 1995. The most popular game was Puzzle Bobble 2, following the original's popularity last week, with 4 votes. Don Patchy and Strikers 1945 had 2 votes each. Don Patchy was Juffa's choice, and I expect he was determined to win this week, just to boost the chance of it coming up. So it now has 4 slots, the same as Puzzle Bobble 2. So let's set things going and see what we get. Okay, slowing down. Oh, Bubble Bobble 2. Space Invaders 95. Oh, yep, it's stopping. So yeah, so that's a choice from Mark. So Space Invaders 95, I'm pretty sure is just a kind of remake and modernizing of the Space Invaders game. So yeah, kind of, although it's a 95 game, it's very much a classic arcade game, fixed shooter, I'm guessing. So I'll go record some footage and be back in a sec. So this week's game is Space Invaders 95, released by Taito in 1995. What I didn't realise is that the full name of this game is Space Invaders 95, The Attack of the Lunar Loonies, which straight away lets you know this isn't a serious game in the series. Like Parodius that we opened this season with, this is a parody game and a cute-em-up. It maintains the fixed shooter dynamic of Space Invaders, but now has a lot more going on and shares some similarities with Galaga. A quick play, and this was better than I was expecting. The presentation is excellent, and it plays very nicely. If anything, it seems a little easy on the default settings, but maybe it ramps up after the first set of levels. The addition of a boss is a nice touch too on this classic formula. We'll be using the 2.50 ROM and default settings as usual. So for next week, please send me your games from 1996. There are plenty of decent shmups from that year, including Battle Gregor, Raiden Fighters, and Sexy Parodius. There are also some decent Neo Geo games, including Metal Slug and Neo Turf Masters. And then finally, some decent puzzle games too, such as Puzzle Bobble 3 or Puyo Puyo Sun. So I hope you all enjoy playing some Space Invaders 95, and I'll be back next week with the scores. See you then.